I was born in Lemberg in Poland.
If you can hold it up
Now
to
let
your
me,
chin.
where do I hold it?
Like right in front of your chin will be perfect.
Like this?
That's good.
Okay. My family come from Poland. They lived in Poland. It's a shtetl. And in the shtetl, you had one rabbi, one rov, and one sheichet. And my grandfather was the sheichet in the shtetl, and you can't hear me?
Just hold it a bit closer.
I'm not a loudspeaker.
That's good. That's why we
Close
have
up. Oh gosh. You remember those days? Yeah, those days. Well, anyway, and and my grandfather used to go to shul, and on the way to shul, he would make sure that people that had no husbands, that they should be warm in the house. He would go and bring them wood, light the wood, and then he would go to, after he finished taking care of a few people in the shtetl, he would go then to shul. And those days, in shul was the cheder. In shul was the place where the yeshiva, that everybody was learning. So he would come there and faher, to find out if the kids would ask a question, and if they knew something from the Torah, he would give them a piece of sugar. A piece of sugar was it wasn't easy to get. Well, anyway, but this was the way he used to take care of the city. My father and mother, my father had a business, and the business was like a grocery delicatessen business, and my mother used to stay in the business, and my father would sit and learn. And at the time, when they had to buy in the big stores, he had to buy in the big stores to bring into his little store, whatever. Maybe it was a big store, I don't know, but he would be doing the big shopping. And so he would go there, and one of my sisters, the older sisters, her name was Malia, and she would be the business lady, and she would go along with my father to buy the stuff. But anyway, my father, so when the war broke out, in 1939 came the war, and how do you call it? Everybody was looking for the children. My mother was looking for the children. My sisters and brothers were hiding somewhere. My sister Sarah was hiding in a cemetery with my brother. And they came, and my mother was worried, and she says, "Where are the children? Where are the children?" Until they all came together, that made her, so she was happy to see all the children. And then, of course, the bomb hit our house, and as they stayed, they stayed a little while. They had no food. There was no food. There was nothing. And she said she's going to go and took her daughter Sarah to go to the store, which is her store. When the Germans came in, there was always put a soldier by every store, by every business, by the synagogue, by everywhere there, no matter what. And so she said she'll take Sarah and she'll go, and she'll go to her store and see if she could get some bread, some cheese, something. So she took Sarah. They went to the store, and there was this Nazi standing there with a big gun. And she goes, and she was crying to him and begging him, can I have something for my children? My children are hungry. And he pointed the big gun into her stomach and said to her, "If you don't leave, I will kill you and your baby." And this baby was, of course, I was born in 1940. This is the time. So already started, I'm involved in the story. So then she went home, and she was crying. She couldn't get anything. And my father also, they didn't know what to do. So they figured, let's go. I had a sister, her name was Tema, and she was the oldest one, and she went to Lemberg to study. And then, of course, she got married, and she had a child. And so they said, let's go to Tema. Let's go to my daughter in Lemberg. Lemberg today is Lvov. So they came, so they decided, they packed up and everything, and they started going towards Lemberg. And of course, Lemberg is not around the corner. And they had to travel and hiding in between. In between, they had to hide and they had to travel. It wasn't easy for them to get to Lemberg. And
if I can interrupt you here.
Yes, sure.
How many children are we talking about?
Oh, I forgot about that part. Well, we were nine, 2 sons and 7 girls. And
plus the parents. So it's plus your parents.
Yeah,
so
think
it's
about
the 11 of you that are traveling.
They were
now.
traveling. Yeah, we were all traveling. Those days it was not a car. It was a horse and buggy. And that's why it wasn't a car either. So they went, so they decided that, they're going to try to get to my sister in Lemberg. And on the way, of course, you had to stop. It was a couple of days, maybe a week or 2 or 3 or 4, who knows, that they had to travel in order to get there. So one time they saw a mill and they got into the mill and they were hiding in the mill. And not only they were hiding, they had other families that were hiding in the mill. And it came at night and my mother said, let's go. We have to leave. I'm afraid to stay in the mill. Let's go into the woods. And my father listened. If my mother said so, then he listened to her. At such a time, you listen to your wife. So they went into the woods, and they came in the morning. When they returned, they came in. They came back, and the place that our family were staying, and in the mill, in the area, in the mill where we were hiding, there were signs of bullets and through the whole wall. And that was a miracle, because if we would have stayed there, our whole family would be killed. So this is the beginning of going towards, they passed Rabbi Ruska, another city, until they came to Lemberg. It's a long way. They finally came to Lemberg.
One more question for you.
Yes, sure.
Before we totally leave Poland, were you traveling with other Jewish families? Were you part of the community there? Like, how did your family even know how to navigate?
Well, everybody traveled where they had to travel. We had a daughter. I had a sister. My father had a daughter in Lemberg. So you look for family. They figured in Lemberg, probably the Germans are not there. Who knows? You never know. He traveled also. He said, and we'll be all together. He'll go to Lemberg, the oldest daughter, and they said, we'll come, we'll be all together there. And each one traveled according to the way everybody ran. Right. They didn't look what the other one was doing. They were just happy, just thank God they were able to take the kids. And my father said that I'm a miracle child. Always he said, she's my miracle child. I don't know how she survived, but I survived because I was born in the real time, in the worst time that you could think of. And anyway, we came to Lemberg, and my mother gave birth in the hospital. And it's very interesting to see in Lemberg how many Jews lived there. The hospital was as big as maybe 2 of these blocks. And it was under a Jewish name. The street was under Jew. It was so much stock went into in Poland, which is unbelievable that this hospital was a Jew that donated for that hospital. But I couldn't stay too long. My mother couldn't stay too long in the hospital. Within a week and a half or something, my father came, and my father took me in his coat. Now, you can imagine the coat was, today you would say you got to wash the baby, forget it. He took me in the coat and we ran. And we ran, and as we were leaving, the Russians came. They came to Lemberg, and they took as many Jews as possible, because in the beginning, Russia and Germany were friends, supposedly. And then the Germans went into Russia. So they went into Russia. That's what they went. They ran into Poland. The Russians came to Poland, to Lemberg, and they took the Jews to Siberia. They took all the Jews, whatever they could, that were not citizens of Lemberg or whatever, whoever they grabbed, and they took us into like cattle cars, anything and they brought us in months till you came to Siberia. And we came to Siberia. What do you do in Siberia? They put us into a room, and the snow was over the head. And I still remember, which I was maybe 2 or 3 years old already by that time, I still remember the snow under the bed. There was snow under the bed, and the windows from ice made beautiful pictures, which is, you probably never heard of that, but if you look it up, you will find there is such a thing as ice can make pictures if it's very, very cold, make pictures on the windows. And this is something that I remember because it was such a beautiful thing for me to see. And this is, in the meantime, we were there, and right away they put my father to work, the older sisters to work. Everybody went, the oldest ones went to work. There was no food in the house. They went into the woods. You had to go into the woods, and there were the white bears there. And a lot of people got killed from these white bears. And you had no choice. You picked up some mushrooms there, or you picked up some blueberries were growing there. There was no way survival, but my father was very gifted. And he was able to, if you give, those days they didn't have a needle even. In Siberia, who was in Siberia? Siberia, they used to send from Russia, from Leningrad or from Moscow, they would send the murderers, the killers, they would send them to Siberia. And us, we were people, that regular people, people were killed by these murderers that were there. So this is, and slowly, for a needle, we got like a sack of potatoes, because they don't even have a needle there, they didn't have anything. So, and slowly, they would slowly, it was getting a little better, because my sisters were able to get onto the market, and they were able to trade a little, and, excuse me. They're able to trade a little, and then my father got an apartment on a hill, where isolated, but it was a big apartment. We were a big family. So, and the owner of that apartment would sleep there. She would sleep there, and we would live there. And we were there on the hill there, and all of a sudden, we thought it was a good apartment. They were knocking on the door. They were knocking very hard and said, "Open up, open up." And a few people with strong voice, "Open up." And my father said, "What is he going to do? There are a bunch of bandits there. What is he going to do? He can't go to he's with a family of young kids. The oldest one was, 17, 18, I don't know. Should I go to the back? He can't go to the back. To the front? Because they're in the back and they're in the front. There's no way out. What should he do? He got an idea of starting screaming, "Ivan, Stepan." He made believe that this is a place where grown-ups are there, big people are there, not kids. And you know something? And it scared them away because they thought they were grown-up people, and scared them away. And yes, and my sister, and I had my sister Heike, and she, I'm telling slowly my sisters and brothers certain things that they did. And she, She saved our lives in a way, because she would go at night when everybody was sleeping. She would go into to the commandant, they called him a commandant, commander's garden, and she would pick there some cucumbers, some watermelon, I don't know, whatever she picked there, and she would come home in the middle of the night, wake up everybody, and food, and everybody had to, we all were, and we had to eat. We ate with the shell, everything, because nothing was supposed to remain, because then he's going to come looking for somebody. When they came looking, there's nothing there, nothing there. But one time they caught her. They caught her one time, and he came with her and brought her into the house. Is she's the one that stole, from my garden? So my father said, nah, she didn't go. She sleepwalks. You probably saw how he sleepwalked. He always had an excuse, a Yiddish cop. He always had an excuse, find a reason why, what happened. And somehow he really was very strong. And if he wouldn't be strong, we wouldn't survive, because very few families came into Siberia and came out completely. Most of the families, they were all sick, all died, from diphtheria, from different sicknesses, from going into the woods. Going into the woods, a lot of them never came back. My sisters also went into the woods. It's just a miracle that they were able to come out.
The story of the snow.
Mm-hmm.
The snow.
Mm-hmm.
When you were a little kid, the snow. They survived you. They survived.
Oh, she reminded me. Well, as we had no food, anything, so my sisters went into the woods and they brought home like radishes. And my mother would put them on the stove, and they would get sweet or something, or whatever. And how do you call it? And all of a sudden they were all sick. They were all sick. And my father, he was in the middle of work, and he just didn't feel good. He comes home, and he sees that everybody's sick. And where's the baby? The baby's dead. I was like really out. That was me, the baby. He took me out outside on a stump. He took snow. He rubbed my head, and he kept on rubbing till he heard a cry. He heard a cry. He grabbed me in the coat. He brought me in, and that was survival. My father said that he thought already he would lose. That's the end of. You could see I am not a professional speaker, but I'm just telling.
You're doing
I'm just
great.
telling the story how it is.
You're doing phenomenally.
Yes, and then my husband tried to get in the city, tried to get a place, and also my sisters tried. They were on the my father, but my sisters tried to also help out, and they would go in the black market, also. They shouldn't catch them. I mean, they had to do something that they shouldn't. Sometimes they would come, the police would come, and they would put you into jail. You couldn't, it was very difficult. And many times my father used to throw my brother over, and he grabbed the material that they were selling, and when they caught them, they said, I never had anything, I have nothing on me. If they find anything on you, they would automatically put you in jail. And then he looked for a place, an apartment. And after this happened, these murderers that came that time at night, they were called like the black cats, Chornei Akoshka. They were like very dangerous, these people. That time when they wanted to come into the house. But after that, he had to go look for an apartment someplace else, because he wouldn't live on the hill anymore. He was afraid to live on the hill. And he came looking, nobody wants to rent an apartment. And they said, you have to have, so he says, we are 3 workers. How many 3 workers are there? They were young kids, but he took the oldest one and said the 3 workers. He didn't tell them that we're a family of 11. He didn't tell them that. So she said, okay. He gave her the money, whatever. And he got into the apartment. And then slowly he brought in the little ones in barrels. He would take them every time another child brought in. And then when the landlady came, says, what is this? So many kids here. Oh, he said, these are how do you call it? These are my grandchildren, you know. He had a white beard. He had a beard. They couldn't tell. Every time another grandchild came there. But anyway, so this is how we lived in Siberia and Russia. And then what happened? This is till 36. 46, I'm sorry. 1946. 40, I think 45 or 46 that we were able to leave. And so I just want to tell you, the Haganah. The Haganah were people that's from Israel. That time was from Israel. The Haganah came to take out as many Jews as possible from Russia. And at that time, they allowed you to go back to Poland. But you were able to go to Poland, but you weren't able to go to Germany or to any other place. So the Haganah took the family, took us. We went to then my mother was very sick, and we went to Szczecin. It's called Szczecin. It's like on the border between Poland and Russia. It's a city there, and in Szczecin, this is I remember on the trains. And we were going, I don't remember how long we were traveling. And my mother was already sick, and on the way and coming to Szczecin, my mother passed away. So she has gone through the whole war. And after we left Siberia, she passed away. And there was nothing they could do because there were no doctors there in Siberia, and in Szczecin, the doctor said that it's too late. It's nothing they can do, and they buried her there in Szczecin.
You were 6? You were 6 years old?
I was like 5, 6 years old, around then. And then we were supposed to go to, they took us to Germany. Where is she buried? In Szczecin.
She has a matzeva?
She was buried. My sister, there was one sister that got married in Siberia. She got married in Siberia. And from Siberia, we went to Germany, but she stayed in Poland, in Łódź, the city of Łódź. Yeah, there she had one child. Yeah, so my father wrote her a letter after when we were already in Germany, that she should go and put the matzeva up. She's the one that put the matzeva up because we were already in Germany to the year. You know, you don't put a matzeva until a year. So to the year she was able. She went. She took a chazan, and she brought and she made and she went to. Yeah, we have a picture. We have a picture of. Huh?
Now, where is she?
Now, what happened is there was a time that in Poland, during the war in Poland, that they destroyed, when we were in Germany, we heard that they destroyed all the cemeteries in Poland. Every cemetery was destroyed. So my brother had a dream that they made a road over, they threw down my mother's, it's unbelievable, a dream before, that they threw down my mother's matzeva and they made a road on top. So really, what happened is all the cemeteries were destroyed. In fact, when we went back, there was nothing, even the cemetery from Tomaszów, all the cemetery, my grandparents, everything was destroyed. They destroyed all Well, that's anti-Semitism we're talking about. Well, anti-Semitism, even after they came out from how do you call it,
Siberia.
from Siberia, yeah, we're already in Germany out, in the DP camps. We're in the DP camps, and then after that, they still destroyed this. They didn't even want a symbol of the Jews. They destroyed all the cemeteries.
Some say that the Poles were worse than the Germans
The
in
Po-
terms
oh,
of
the Po-
their anti-Semitism.
Yeah, but then
What happened to Mala?
okay, what happened? First of all, what happened when we went when the Russians came in, and they took us to Siberia. My sister was crying that we were taken to Siberia. But what happened is, she was the Umglick. When she was in how do you call it, in Poland, the Germans came and they took her and her baby and her husband, took her to this concentration camp. They didn't. My sister Tama didn't survive. And my sister Malia, we were in how do you call it? We came in Russia. In Siberia. So Malia said she wants to go back because we loved. My grandmother was still living, some aunts, uncles. There was still a lot of Jews that remained. She didn't know what happened to them, but she wanted to go back to see her grandmother there, what's going on. So she decided to go back. So she went back, but they didn't let her out later. So she had to hide, and she hid by a German farm, made believe she's helping them. And then the war, just before the war was over, there was somebody that told on her and a few more people, and they took them out and they shot them. That's just before a year before the war was over. Yeah, and they shot them all. So you have, how do you call it? So we have, and my sister that got married, that lived in Lodz, after the war. So my father told him, you know what, you're in Lodz, you're still in Poland, you didn't come here. Go and see what's happening with we had a house, we had a business. Maybe you could go and sell, it's after the war, you'll sell the house. So he decided, okay, he'll go. He went to Tomashov, and he went to the house, and there was somebody living there, and they said, oh, come in, and they were friendly, and oh yes, and they'll give him money for the house and everything, and they made l'chaim, they were so everything, and he got the money. And he fainted. They poisoned him. My sister was worried. She didn't know what happened to him. He never came back. He didn't come back. They poisoned him, but they found they found him in a hospital in Lodz. Then my sister went. She got him. Then they went to Israel. But he was never the same. He was sick the rest of his life. This is what happened. The Polacks, talking about anti-Semitism, this is what happened in how do you call it, in Poland. The Polacks were just as bad. The Polacks, the Ukrainians, it doesn't matter. They were all, how do you call it? If you were Jewish, that's it. And my father has gone through the First World War. He went through. With all these pogroms. In fact, he had a mark on his hand that they cut his hand. They wanted to kill him. They cut his hand in half. So he still had, even the pogroms he has gone through. By the time we came to the DP camps. Now, the DP camps was already good. America sent packages, food and clothing, and it was heaven. It was like, and there it was right away, and we went to 3 different DP camps. We were in Ulm, in Nayulm, next to Ulm, the city Ulm in Germany. Then we were in Gabersee. Then we were in Fahrenwald. 3 different camps. From Fahrenwald, we had a Bnei Akiva, we had a Mizrahi, we had an Aguda, we had yeshivas there in the DP camps. And my brother was the head of the Bnei Akiva, you know, and they marched Yom HaTzmaut, came to Yom HaTzmaut. Everybody celebrated in the DP camps. And then we got, how do you call it? We got visas to go to America. My cousin took us out into America.
What, Israel?
Yeah.
We were supposed to go, yes. We were originally supposed to go to Israel because we were supposed to leave in a couple of days to Israel. And all of a sudden, my father prepared for Israel because my sister wrote him. My sister from Lodz went to Israel. And they said, we're going to be together. My father said, we'll go to Israel. We'll all be together in Israel. My sister was in Israel. And my father in Germany, he planned. They said there's no place to live there. People went to Israel. There wasn't a place to live there. And he said he's going to, so he built a small little house, a folding house, that when we come to Israel, we'll have a place to stay in. They said there's nothing available, there's nothing there. So he sent it away to Israel. In the meantime, my sister had it. But what happened in a day too, my father I had a cousin in America that he sent for us. When he heard that he was able to go to America, he got out the papers from Israel, and he automatically, we came to the United States. And since then, there's more stories, but I think that's enough.
Amazing.
I probably left out half of it, but at least some of it you heard.
Well, we'll ask a few follow-up questions, and of course, if you in the audience have questions as well, feel free to raise your hands, but I'll kick us off. So one of the questions that I have is, you referenced the pogroms that your father went through before you were exiled to Siberia and then faced further anti-Semitism upon your return, but that there was still some sense of faith. Obviously, your siblings were in Bnei Akiva, you still wanted to go to Israel, Yom HaTzmaut. Can you talk to us about faith in your family, and how did that exist during this whole experience and thereafter?
All right, let me tell you about the faith. You should know that the mother is the one that gives the children the whole chinuch. She's the one that's felt responsible for all of them. I still remember that on Motzei Shabbos, after Shabbos, we would all sit by the window, and we would all, how do you call it? We would all wait for the Shabbos to leave us. We were sitting by the window, and my mother was telling us, that's the chinuch that she gave us. She said, Mashiach is on his last step. She says, there's a big ladder, that's how, to little kids, how she said, there's a big ladder that goes all the way up to Shamayim, to heaven, and Mashiach is already on his last step. He says, if all the Jews would keep one Shabbos, Mashiach would be here. So I just want to tell you that's something that you heard of the chinuch of our. And we couldn't allow to ben shlich there. And I remember my father lighting the Hanukkah menorah. He would take potatoes, cut them in half, take out the inside, put in a little oil, whatever, and that was his Chanukiah. The Chanukiah was potatoes but he lit. And my father, and in Siberia, they had, there was a minyan every day, somehow. In Siberia, they hid the Jews someplace, in somebody's basement, someplace, and they all used to go to the minyan, and they would quietly, they would come out. Every day we saw them die. And my mother, Motzei Shabbos, she always said loud, God from Avraham, from Yitzchak, from Yaakov. That's it. Baditchever Rebbe's Shabbos. This. So we always saw my mother lighting candles. She always told us stories. And on Tisha B'Av, we were all sitting on the floor, and she was tell us the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash, how the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. She would in Yiddish, of course. So I just want to tell you that the mother gave us the whole chinuch about Yiddishkeit, and it stayed with us all the way. We're all Orthodox, all keep Shabbos, all, it's unbelievable how we kept it all till today.
Wow, it's amazing. Some of the names that you mentioned, we heard a Chaya, we heard an Amalia. Are these the names after which the Chaya and the Amalias that we know in the Raskin family are named? And can you connect the dots for us?
Amalia is my sister's name. And the Chaya that Sherny has is after the Rebbetzin. After my grandma, my mother-in-law. I thought after my mother-in-law, I'm sorry. We have a Chaya Tzilia, and then we have a Chaya Mushka. Right. Mm-hmm. It's she's named after my mother-in-law, and she has a little daughter that's also named after an aunt, Zisi. Her name was Chana Zisla, Zisi. So we have and Malia. Malia's named after the sister that was killed at the end, and she was the one that went back worried about what's happening with her grandmother and the family.
So it gives us better context for the folks for the little ones in our community now understanding the heroes that they were named after. How aware were you of the horrors that were taking place around you? By the time you're moving to America, there's Yom Ha'atzmaut, so you must have already been 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
How aware were you of what was going on, and how has that affected you since? What sort of residue do you feel that those early experiences have had on you? Have you held on to things? Are there things that you've continued to experience since the war has ended?
Well, I'm a Zionist, no matter what, because I was raised in the DP camps. We marched Yom Ha'atzmaut. We had meetings. You had the head, like my brother was one of the head from Bnei Akiva, and my father was one of the head of the yeshiva Bnei Akiva. It's called. I mean, we were the whole family was involved in how do you call it? In
the Zionist movement.
A Zionist movement. Oh yes. In fact, when we went to the counselor, and my father said to him, my little girl, she knows how to count till 10 in English. So I screamed, I don't want to go to America. I want to go to Israel. A little kid, I was 5, 6 years old. No, older, 8, 9 years old. And I said, I don't want to go to America. I'm sorry, Americans. I want to go to Israel. So you have to understand that I had already in me enough feeling for Israel.
Kol hakavod, kol hakavod.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of bringing things a bit to the present day. There have been a lot of comparisons to what's happened in the last year to the Holocaust. And it's a very touchy subject. Certainly we got a taste of the brutality of the Holocaust.
Oh, yes.
Although the scale was, thank God, much different. Can you share with us, how is it to have gone through what you've gone through, and now to witness this wave of anti-Semitism around the world, in our backyard, and of course the atrocities themselves? Like, what does that bring up for you? And what has it been, what is your takeaway seeing this again?
I'll tell you. The feeling of what happened is undescribable. And I feel such a hatred towards Hamas, unwillingly, that I wish that Israel would really, go and to finish off what they started. That's the feeling I have.
One of the things that you experienced firsthand, and I'm curious if there were any friendships that you developed while you were in Siberia or during this process that you can tell us about and what happened to those people. But one of the things that seems to be a through line is this inability to trust people who seem to have goodwill. You know, as referenced in the story, like when your brother-in-law went to the home you used to live in and they did a l'chaim, and there appeared to be this goodwill, and then there was a betrayal by someone who seemingly was cordial and friendly and had good wishes. What is your lesson to the Jewish people in terms of fettering out the anti-Semites in our midst and assuring that we can persevere through these times where our enemy is hiding their face? They're walking down the street next to us and they're also hiding their face. What is the lesson that you can impart to us, given your experience walking among people who wish you weren't there?
Well, one thing, the trust. The trust, there's no trust. There's no trust. I'll tell you something. My brother-in-law, I had a brother-in-law, I'm sorry. And he was in the concentration camp. And he told us that they put a lot of Jews on a floor, naked, put them on the floor naked, and let in dogs. And said to the dog, Mensch, es tut dem Hund. That means, Mensch, if you don't understand man, they call the dog man, and they call a person Hund. Mensch, es tut dem Hund. And he said he closed his eyes. He said, Shema Yisrael, and he heard screaming and yelling. He said, Shema Yisrael. He said he doesn't know what happened. It was meant for him to live. The dog smelled him and went away. They're miracles that, I have 100 million stories, but it just reminded me why I feel, why I don't trust. And that saying, he went back, after the war, he went back, he knew that his father hid some golden something in the house. He went back to his house, and he wanted to dig up what his father left there. And they told him, if you don't leave this minute, we're going to do to you what Germans didn't finish. So I just want to tell you, now how much do I have to hear all that and still feel trust? Very hard to trust. Well, I got some more stories.
No, it's good. We want to hear all of the stories. I'm so curious, why this year, if there's a reason, did you decide it was time to tell the story publicly? What changed this year? Did it have anything to do with current events that you decided that your story needed to be told so that we could learn from what you've been through?
Yes. It's really, this is only like a dessert. I mean, I've heard plenty of different stories, plenty of hatred, and unbelievable people that you think they love you, and then you see that they really hate you. So this is what happened. The Jews, the people these people gave food to these murderers. They helped them. They give them electricity. They gave them Israel, everything. And they went and killed out. And these people alone were babysitters by them and washed their floors by them. They gave them parnassa. And still they came and they killed out so many Jews.
I'll end with this question. What gives you the most nachas after seeing so many people wiped out after witnessing the current events, both on a personal and on a more macro level of the Jewish people. What brings you the most nachas after all of these years?
Well, you're talking about, well, Israel, I see the Israeli soldiers and the way they love each other, and the way in Israel all the Jews are together, and they're each one is for each other, and the way they went into to fight, it's unbelievable. That gives me a lot of strength, and of course my nachas, Baruch Hashem. I have children, Kanahara. I mean, I have my sister, myself. We are the only ones survived so far, but I have children, Baruch Hashem, the best, and grandchildren, and great grandchildren, and I don't think anybody has such good children.
Kol hakavod. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Het gaat opkomen, is
Amazing.
I was good. Good, I'm so nervous.